We'll just watch this one.
No, no.
Oh, oh, you live? Sorry.
Yeah, I think so.
You on? Let's see. Yep, it's live
Live where?
on Facebook, and then let me check YouTube. And it's live on. It's not on YouTube.
We don't need YouTube.
We don't need YouTube.
If we did a TikTok interview, it'd be a lot faster.
Your face, you're just like.
Staring into infinity, Marco. It's
TikTok would be faster. Cool. So just Facebook from now.
Yes.
No
I don't
YouTube,
see it
right?
on YouTube.
that's good.
Yeah, it's Facebook.
Yeah, Facebook. only.
Sorry, YouTube.
YouTube is on.
Yeah.
Perfect. We got 4 viewers. What's up, guys?
Okay. What's going on, guys? Wait,
Where are you gonna go? Do we need to back up?
yes. I think so. Come on.
Closer.
Sorry, let me turn this down.
Cool. You guys.
What's up, Thomas?
Say
Thomas
hi.
Ford? Tanner, Thomas.
How's it going, guys? We're here at the school. We just had our little Zoom virtual class, and we're talking with Jay and Jason. And man, so many stories, so many jiu-jitsu conversations that we decided to talk and share with you too. Especially because the other day I was talking to Jay. Especially the knowing a little bit about Jason, his views on jiu-jitsu, his journey, his training, his kids, training with his kids jiu-jitsu, how jiu-jitsu has impacted his life, and things like that. And Jay is gonna be there. You're gonna be like the Jamie,
I'll be like the hype guy.
monitoring
Monitoring like our traffic.
monitoring
Got
the
it.
comments,
Questions if they have any.
questions, and we're just here. There's nothing like scripted, just basically pretty much at this point. Can you make this bigger?
Erica, Christian, Tanner.
Oh yeah, here we go.
No Jerry? No Jerry today?
Jerry's not here today.
Jerry, we saw Jerry in Zoom.
Why I'm not?
But he's not here. He's like the #1 fan. Are you hidden behind those utilities, Mr. Marco?
Huh?
I think you were hidden behind those little utilities.
Yes.
there.
They don't see those. They see those?
I
No.
don't think they see those. Cool. Jason, jiu-jitsu, how long?
So I started jiu-jitsu. It's kind of fuzzy, but I think it was around 2003, 2004 is when I started. I was living in a small town in South Texas, and one of my coworkers went to Charleston, South Carolina for 6 months, and he trained with a Helson Gracie brown belt there named Jerry Brewer. And when he came back, he was looking for people to train with. And so he started recruiting coworkers. And at first, all I did was just kind of make fun of him. Typical person,
You didn't believe him.
I didn't, walking around with gis and stuff. I thought it was kind of funny. And he says, "Man, you ought to come and try. You ought to come try. You ought to come try." And finally, after enough persuading, I said, "I'll go give it a whirl." And they were actually meeting at a church. They had a church rec area that they put a bunch of mats out, and we went into the church, and I had my sweatpants on and my socks, and I didn't know what I was doing, and it wasn't even an intro explaining what jiu-jitsu was or anything. The person just said, well, we're going to wrestle. And I said, okay, well, I've wrestled before.
You wrestled in high school?
No, just wrestling
backyard.
with friends, backyard
Yeah.
stuff.
Wrestle, so you wrestle.
Wrestle.
So
Bulls? That's later.
Later.
So he stuck his hand out, we shook hands, and I think he pulled guard initially. And I was just there inside his guard. I was like, what do we do? This is the craziest thing. Like, what's going on here?
Very deceiving. When they pull guard, you think like you're winning. Like, why?
Yeah, and that's how I was. I was just kind of sitting there hanging out inside this guy's guard. I said, well, what am I going to do? Or what are you going to do? And the guy said, well, what are you going to do? And he was a white belt with one stripe. He'd been training for 6 months, and he was now my instructor. And so I stood there was in his guard for a minute, and pretty soon he did something. He swept me, got on top, and he choked me in about 2 seconds. And I thought, man, that was pretty interesting. And like most people, it's the classic,
do it again.
You do it again.
It's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen again. Well, now that I'm ready, because I felt like I wasn't ready because I was tricked. So we began to shake hands, and this time I went at him to put him down, and he did a kind of a back roll and made me fly through the air, and then again got on top of me. And Manny, he's still out there in Facebook land somewhere, so I don't want to say anything too negative, but he was an older guy, a little bit heavy set, and he just like made me feel like I knew nothing. I knew nothing about fighting. I knew nothing about wrestling.
So he gave you your first introduction.
That was my first introduction to jiu-jitsu, and I loved it. So I started going.
You wanted to. Was there a school?
There was no school. There was 4 of us that pretty much started together. Dennis Russo, still training in Carrizo Springs. A guy named Ryan Nicholas, Manny Garcia, and myself. And that was like the 4 of us that would always train. And then we were always looking for people that we could invite over.
You guys were like a garage, just getting together on a few days. Like, what was the weekends?
And this was pretty much before YouTube or anything. So
2003.
We couldn't find any videos or anything really to study. There was a few
DVDs.
What we would do is we would record the old Pride fights. When Pride started becoming popular, we would record them. And then we would go back and try to figure out what the people were doing in the Pride fights. And then the Gracie family had VHS cassettes called I think it was Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, the Basics, Intermediate, and Advanced. And I'm not sure if those videos are still available anywhere, but we would watch those
CDs, DVDs.
We would watch those
VHS.
Just the tracking, and then watch our video.
That's what holding on hoist.
Yes.
Oh wow!
And watching those videos, I always felt like they would hold out just a little bit of information that, like, you would watch it, and I never felt like I could do the techniques like I should. I was always missing something, and so I said, you know what? I'm going to see if I can find a school. And I was living in a little town. I said less than 10,000 people, and the biggest town was San Antonio, Texas, which was about 120 miles from where I lived. And so I went up there one day, and I found a school that had a black belt, and I was so excited. My first official school to walk in and sat down with the black belt, and immediately.
This was how long after your first class?
This was probably 2 years maybe after we'd been doing it.
2 years you were
just in the garage messing around, and then
with your white belt instructor.
With my white belt instructor. So I always tell people I have a lot of mat time, but I didn't have a lot of structured training.
Are you from that town? Were you born there?
I'm from Central Texas originally, Killeen, Texas, which is about an hour from Austin, and between Austin and Waco. If anybody knows I-35.
Waco?
Yes.
Were you there when the whole thing?
I was in the Branch Davidians. I was in high school when that happened.
No way. Yes. So close, right?
It was pretty close.
Yeah.
But
you got to the black belt.
So I went to the black belt. It was a typical kind of scenario. That the guy didn't really care if I signed up or I didn't. He kind of brought me in. I had to sign the waiver, and the average class structure for that class was 15 minutes of warm up, like cardio warm up, and then you would do 15 minutes of like stretching and drills. Then you would do 15 minutes of a technique, and then 15 minutes of rolling. That was the hour kind of breakdown.
That's kind of like this standard
kind of jiu-jitsu
format. Anybody commenting?
Yes.
We're here talking with Jason about his sharing his journey, how jiu-jitsu has impacted his life, and
yes.
overall.
If you guys have questions to ask Jason,
yes, please
ask
him
him
questions. So then you stay. What was his school? His name?
Hold on, it's Sergio.
Brazilian guy.
A Brazilian guy, Sergio Correa. He still has a school there in San Antonio.
How long you stay with him?
And I signed up. You had to pay for a year when you. So I did my intro class.
The whole
one
payment.
One, pretty much. Well, no, I signed up. It was payments for a year, but you had to sign up for a year.
Okay. Like a contract.
So I did my first class. He kind of came over to me afterwards, like, "What'd you think?" And I said, "Well, I liked it because I was already in love with jiu-jitsu, and now I felt like the black belt had all the knowledge, and now I had to stay with this black belt." And he said, "Okay, sign up," and basically kind of rushed me through a contract really quickly. I paid, and at that time, I think it was about $100 a month or something. And but the crazy thing is, I could only get up there once a week because it was 120 miles for me to drive up there.
Wow.
And a lot of times, the technique that you learned in that 15 minutes was part of a series or something that they had been working on for a while. So I didn't have context. I feel like I was missing so much.
Like consistency.
And so I did like it. I did learn a little bit. I remember I would come back to my core guys that I had there in the meeting in the church and wherever we could meet. And I would try to show them something. And to me, it was $100 technique because I paid for the technique. And then they would say, well, what if I do this? And then I never had the answer. Like, it was always, well, what if I do this? And then they invalidated what I just spent an hour or 120 miles to drive there, paid the money. And then they were like, it doesn't work. And then
you're like,
so that was, from 2003 to, 2000.
So that's like impressive, because when you want to learn, you make those sacrifices, like 100 miles driving.
Absolutely, and paid for privates. I paid for privates.
Like I drove into seminars for hours because I wanted to learn. So that was very impressive of you, like driving.
Well, it's jiu-jitsu. It was so addicting to me, and really it was that first class of just kind of feeling like I was helpless, like I didn't know anything. That I was like, man, if this guy can do this to me in 6 months of training, how good will I be if I train for a year or 2 years or now going on whatever it is, many years.
So 2004, you say,
till 2009. I was just trying to find people. I would travel, watching a lot of videos. Once YouTube came out, then it kind of made things a little bit easier. You could start kind of finding stuff on YouTube. But back in those early days, it was hard to find anybody that was actually teaching a technique. Most of the time, they were doing a demonstration. If you found something on YouTube, it was somebody doing a demonstration, so you'd watch and try to figure out all the details, but they're not explaining the details.
There was no instructional.
In 2009, I got detailed to Charleston, South Carolina, and I was there, still a white belt, no stripes. I'd never received a stripe
for all those years.
For all those times I trained and say after about a year and some change, I quit going to San Antonio because I was paying a lot of money and I wasn't able to take advantage. And so in 2009, I went to Charleston and I started training with Jerry Brewer again, the Helson. He was still a brown belt at the time under Helson. That was the one that had trained the person that I.
What a coincidence!
It was a coincidence, and I trained there for 3 months, and I was there on detail for work. So I had my house was there, but this was 2009. Randall was born in 2008, so Carrie and Randall were there. And he was a year old, and I told her, I can't miss out on this opportunity to go to a school that's in the same town that I'm actually staying in. She was extremely supportive, and she was like, "Why we're here 3 months? Man. Go as much as you want." So I would take lunch breaks. I would go to the school when they would have a lunchtime class, and then I would go in the evening, and I would train.
It's very important that your wife or girlfriend supports you and understand that.
And she knew how much of an opportunity it was to be in a town with a brown belt and have that opportunity to train all the time. And so I trained with Jerry for 3 months, just all the time. And like I said, by that time, I didn't have a whole lot of real training, but I had a lot of mat time, a lot of time just rolling with extremely tough guys.
So toughness.
Just toughness. And at the end of that 3 months, I got there in December 2008, and like January or October 2008, like January 2009, it was my last month there, and I walked up to the instructor and I said, "Hey, thank you so much for everything, and I really appreciate it." And he said, "Oh man, I can't believe you're leaving already." And he says, "Let's roll." We did a couple rolls. He put me with a few other people, and then at the end of it, he says, "Well, I'm going to give you your blue belt."
Nice.
And it's funny because he never gave me a blue belt. He just said, "You're a blue belt." And then I don't have anything. And but it was cool. We did the gauntlet kind of thing where you go on your hands and knees and people hit you with the belt.
Yeah, I remember.
And did the gauntlet, and then I left, and then I had to go out and buy my first blue belt. I had to buy it myself.
Man, I remember back in the day they would throw the guy who get the blue belt. Yeah. They would throw him like
everybody would
give him a throw, and then the gauntlet on top. Right.
So you get
but then the throw kind of start fading off, and then what just gauntlet. And now there's no more gauntlet anymore. Right? Some schools still do it. Yeah, but it's also
and I think it depends on the school you go to. You know what I mean? If you it's just heavy sports schools. I think heavy sports schools are traditionally the ones who I see most of the time doing the gauntlets.
Yep. So you stay there for
So I left there, and then I went back to in that same time period, like 2009, we moved to New Mexico, southeast New Mexico, and it was a training environment for my job. So there was a lot of people that were kind of training, but again, nobody with real experience. But there was a couple people that had blue belts, and one guy that had a purple belt, and we just continued to train all the time without a real school. Kind of towards the end of that, one of the guys actually opened a school under Helson, and had a school there in that town. And Helson never came to visit or anything. We just had our lineage through Helson, and I just kept training. Still blue belt, no stripes or anything, until 2013 is when we moved to Virginia. And then
you moved to Leesburg, or
I moved to Leesburg. And I told this story when the mayor was here, when we did was it the 5-year anniversary?
Yes.
And the mayor was here, and this is 100% a true story. When you do a permanent change of station, they give you a house hunting trip. So during your house hunting trip, it's only a couple days. You don't really have a whole lot of time to really find a house. Seldom do you find a house. You really try to, in this environment, you just try to find a neighborhood that you want to live in. Mm-hmm. And my job when I first got here was actually in Reston. So I was looking around in Reston and in Herndon and Ashburn, and the realtor said, "Hey, you should go to Leesburg." And I said, "Okay, I'll go to Leesburg." And so we drive into town, and we come right down Market Street here. And I remember kind of looking around, and I looked off to the left, and I saw Red Hot and Blue Barbecue. I saw Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. I saw Dunkin' Donuts and Starbucks in the same spot. And I said, I called my wife and I said, "Honey, we're moving to Leesburg. It's got everything I need. Barbecue.
The people seems to be very nice.
Barbecue, donuts, and jiu-jitsu." I was like, "What?"
Prices are low. There's a jiu-jitsu studio over there.
It just happened that there is a jiu-jitsu studio there too.
Right next door.
So that was, and you had opened up in 2012, I think, and we got here in March of 2013. And I remember walking in the door, and I don't think you had. I don't know if you had a student or you had a private or something. You said, "If you hold on a minute," then you kind of brought me in, and you kind of did your normal spiel where you bring the combatives cards and you kind of explain. And you asked me about my experience, and I said, well, yeah, I'm a blue belt. He goes, oh, you're already a blue belt. And I think it's because you didn't have really any blue belts that had been here at that time. And I said,
yes, because I started with 0 students.
Zero.
So.
And I said, yes. And so then we kind of did it. He said, well, you need to do the 10-day program. You come here and
Combatis.
for combatives. He was pitching me, and I was basically telling him, I just want to sign up.
You don't need to tell me anything.
He said, no, but we want you to do a 10-day trial. That way you can see if you like it. Like, I like it.
You get a free gi.
So you're a brown belt. At the time you were a brown belt, and we were here with Helson, which was the same lineage I was already in. I was sold before I got here. And then you said, I want you to learn the combatives program. And at first I was like, combative? I'm already a blue belt. I don't think I need this combative.
Back then there was a different testing situation.
It was to get you. It was
on like just you spar, and then you kind of like know what you are doing. Right. So then you get your blue belt.
That's right. You just tough it out. That's the way most schools are. And when I got my blue belt, it's the classic journey thing. First, you're so excited to get it. And then you think you know everything, and then you realize that you don't know anything, and you kind of go through that. But when I came here and you said, this is the combatives program, this is our path to the blue belt, I said, well, why do I need to go through the combatives program path to the blue belt if I'm already a blue belt? I didn't understand it. And you said, because everybody at this school does this path to the blue belt, so they see you already wearing a blue belt, they're going to expect you to know this curriculum. And I thought, man, okay, that makes a good point. My blue belt should mean the same as every other blue belt in the school, like this core curriculum. So it started to make sense, and then started training the combatives program here. That was 2013, and then been here since 2013, 2020. Here we are.
Amazing.
Where's the time go? I remember when I first got here. I don't remember meeting you on the first day I came in, but I remember I came in, I met you, and I was like, man, this guy's a blue belt.
And then after doing the combatives, what did you realize? What was your impression of the combatives?
So I first of all, the structure and the way that you teach with the angles, you don't find that really anywhere else. Most places you kind of teach in the round. And I love Jerry Brewer, great person, great instructor, but his kind of normal way of teaching is he would go, all right, what do you guys want to learn today? And when you're the white belt or you're the brand new blue belt, you don't want to say anything because there's purple belts and brown belts. You kind of wait for them. And those guys, they don't ever say, I want to learn basic armbar from the guard. They say, I want to learn the Baron Bolo, or I want to learn the Peruvian necktie. I want to learn something fancy. And so when I was in Charleston, I was learning all these really, really fancy techniques, which work when all the elements are in place. But there was no foundation. I didn't feel like I had a really good foundation because remember before that, my experience was just what I could learn from watching pride fights and rolling with really tough guys. And then like getting parts of techniques when I was going to San Antonio and then going to Charleston and getting really advanced techniques. And I never felt like I had a really solid foundation. So when I came here, I felt like that's what the combatives was a great foundation for everything. And I tell people I learned a lot during combatives. Even though maybe I'd seen the techniques before, the level of the detail, the how and the why behind the techniques changed the way I viewed those techniques.
Yeah. Did you know that you always wanted to be an instructor? Did you know that from day one that you wanted to be an instructor?
I didn't know I wanted to teach jiu-jitsu, but I love teaching. I've always loved teaching. I'm in law enforcement now. I was an instructor. My whole time in Southeast New Mexico was teaching for 4 years. I taught at the academy, and I fell in love with teaching. I love conveying knowledge. So this is just kind of a natural transition. In fact, one of the very first couple weeks that I was here, Marco invited, my son was 5 years old, maybe he was 4 years old at the time. And I said, I want to sign my son up too. He says, well, you could come in.
Randall was 4?
He was like 4 or 5 when we moved here. So he was 8. No, I'm going to get in trouble for messing up the years. But yeah, so how old were we? 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Yeah, 5, like 4 or 5 years old. And so we came here, we signed up, and you said, you can help out with the kids' classes. Because you didn't have much help in those days. It was pretty much but you and Susie and then whoever else would kind of come in and sit down. And then I loved teaching the kids and working with the kids because it was something that I had never done. And at first I thought I was scared. I always thought I was going to break a kid. Like if I fall on the kid or if I
remember
do
on
something.
dodgeball.
The new kid. The new he was
Brand new.
He was helping the first class.
It was that kid's first class, right?
And it was the kid's first class.
And his parents were watching.
And everybody was watching on dodgeball, and Jason kicked the ball super hard.
Marco's like, level 2.
Like hit the kid on the back.
It was like on a line, huh? Like the ball's like
right.
traveling.
But
and then how did the parents do it? Oh,
it caught him right in the face, right?
Was it in the face?
And the crazy, so if you've never kicked the dodgeball, there's 2 ways you can kick it.
You don't know how light the ball is.
The first time you can kick it one way and use the same amount of kick, and it just kind of flat, just like poof, and doesn't go anywhere.
Right.
But another way, you have your foot just the right way, and the ball you hit in the right spot, and it's like a beeline. I mean, it's like a rocket. And I was still working on my technique. And Marco's like, level 2, and I kicked it, and I mean, it was like the worst level 2. The kid hits him in the face, like the kid goes down.
Like, parents in the audience were just like, "Oh, look!
What are they doing here?
What is going on? What's Marco doing? What are you letting these people in here?"
But he signed up, I think.
He signed up. His parents were like,
I don't think.
Yeah, I think he signed up.
No, they have fun when they like. Yeah, that's like the best part. So yeah, I fell in love with
Cool.
teaching. And
Yeah,
teaching
you're a natural teacher. Man.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Especially I feel you're good on like transferring not so much just the technique, but you always wanna show them the concept, so they see more like you can use whatever we're using in this technique for all these other.
The car concept.
How do you come up with like those things?
So that's probably a fault as an instructor because as soon as I teach somebody something and they get it, then I want to show them something else, and I want to show them something else, and at some point you realize like I've given them already too much. So I've had to learn to dial back a little bit. But the idea of kind of these concepts started when I kind of when people would ask me like, how long did it take you to get from your blue belt to your purple belt, and I said, well, it took me a little bit longer, but this is kind of why. And then how long's then it was like most people's journey kind of goes like you do well and then you kind of plateau for a while. You feel like you're not getting any better, but then all of a sudden something clicks and then you feel like you get really good, and then you kind of plateau again. And I always thought if I could,
Your mom says hi.
if
My mom watching.
I said,
Hola.
I said if I
Really, for real?
Hi everybody, nice to see you.
Hey,
Sorry,
mom. My mom is the biggest fan, top fan.
I said if we could if I could remember like all those things that helped me get over those plateaus, maybe I could shorten somebody's journey. They wouldn't spend so much time in plateaus, and they could kind of straighten out that trajectory a little bit. And so when I started thinking about what those concepts were that really became big for me, those were the things that I started kind of concentrating when I would watch technique. So it was the how a technique works or the why a technique works. We've done a few Facebook videos where we talked about that. The understanding of learning from both sides of the technique, learning the offense and the defense.
The other day it's not about just training hard. It's training smart.
It's training
right?
smart.
Training smart. So when you are somebody's teaching you a technique, if you're smart, you're already seeing the other side of the defense. What would you do if that is what it takes for them to catch you in that technique? You can already be seeing
reverse engineer.
So you reverse engineer, and then you are getting already the whole defense too. You don't have to wait for the defense class of this technique, right?
Right. So now, if you learn the offense of how to do a technique and simultaneously learn how to do the defense, then instead of having to do an offense class and a defense class, you combine them, and now your journey is going to be a little bit shorter. But also, it's just a way of thinking. So, Jay and me and Mark, we do this all the time. Well, what would you do if I do this? And it's because you start to understand how to think about defense versus, well, I've never seen a class on defense. If Henner doesn't do a video on how to defend this, I'll never figure it out. Now I know how to think through how to
the idea of you saying, listen, the submission already locked in. That's the worst case scenario. There's multiple escapes leading up to that final lockup.
Where did I mess up that allowed that to happen? What was the earliest thing that I could have done to stop?
That's very important. That was very important.
What other concepts have you, like, if you you're not gonna show it, but maybe
So one of the things I was talking about was Hito always talks about keep it playful. We have a sign here in the school that says keep it playful, and to me, keep it playful isn't about not taking it serious, because some people think of keep it playful as going in there and goofing around, right?
Yes, you're right.
And to me, that's not what it is. To me, keep it playful is a spirit of discovery, right? And what I mean by that is training jiu-jitsu with the idea of let me see what can happen. What's in the world of possibilities? Because once I kind of start to understand what's in the world of possibilities, then I can figure out what I want to do in order to make those things stop, right? So a lot of times people will say, you have an amazing side mount, or your side mount is so good. Why does somebody have amazing side mount, or amazing mount, or amazing guard? Whatever that position is that's good for that person, is because they've spent a lot of time in that position. Maybe they naturally found themselves in that position. Smaller guys naturally find themselves in the guard a lot, and so they develop a guard game really well. Heavier guys, bigger guys tend to find themselves in side control, stronger guys, and they develop that side control game. But because you're there so long, you start to understand what people are doing in that position. You're not always good right away. Most of the time, even a very strong guy, the first time they put you in side control, you can probably escape. Yeah. But 6 months of them being in that side control position, it starts to make things a lot more difficult, because now they understand all your escape opportunities. And I always tell people, it's a good way to think about positions and techniques is think of 3 most common behaviors from any position. And we do this already when we teach, right? If I'm teaching the mount, I teach 3 common behaviors from somebody on the bottom: push, punch, roll, right? That's what we teach in the mount. Or if I'm teaching the trap and roll, it's somebody that's postured, somebody that's low, or somebody that's punching. So we teach these common behaviors already, but I always try to think, like, if I can understand like 3 common behaviors from somebody when I land in side control, what are the 3 things that they're likely to do? Then I'm already ahead of them. Then I can already start to think about all right, if he does this, this is what I'm going to do.
So in every position, create like a pattern of pathways where the match could go. And if he goes here, I have 3 things to do here. And if he goes here, then I have 3 things to do here. And have that kind of connection.
Exactly.
It's like a flow chart.
It's a flow chart. And then some people have done the master cycle with me. I talk about my road trips, and that's how I've come up with the road trips, where it's the stringing of the techniques together, is because I know the common behaviors. And instead of getting so upset that I lost the first technique, I'm intrigued about the opportunity to do my next technique.
And that comes back to keep it playful, because what would be the opposite of keep it playful would be you just pull guard and just hold guard.
So, well, what do you learn if Jay gets me in and I'm on the bottom of his side control, and he holds me for 5 minutes, and nothing doesn't let me move. His control is so tight, he doesn't let me move. What did he learn?
What did he learn? Just Simon, which is already good. If
he probably knows he's already good at side control.
He's not exploring more.
He's not exploring. He's not having the attitude of discovery, the thought process of.
And you're not learning either.
I'm not learning anything either. At the end of it, maybe I'm happy because he didn't submit me, but I feel like, man, I didn't move. And most people who have sparred will tell you that the best sparring matches are the ones where you're moving a lot, and that you go, man, that was fun. When you move a lot and you see a lot, and there's submission opportunities. When there's no submission opportunities, it becomes kind of boring.
Yeah.
Now there are times. So what's the opposite of keep it playful? All right, is a spirit of discovery. But if I don't want to do that, and there's times when I do that, I say I'm going to hold, and I'm not going to let anybody move. I'm getting ready for a tournament. I'm going to get whatever, and that's the keep it real mindset. Like I'm going to spar, and there are times for that too. But most of the time for me, keep it playful is I want to see what you're going to do. And here's the crazy thing is, what happens if you escape? I don't even care. I don't even care that you escaped. Because in my head, I go, well, I kind of let that happen.
Right.
I kind of let that happen. And then I think, okay, well, what did he do to escape? Oh, he did this. Well, I'm not going to let that happen again. And so now I'm still letting you move. I'm still learning. Mm-hmm. And that's, to me, is the keep it playful kind of mindset, is that, and you're learning these common behaviors. But if I never let you move, I'm never going to figure out what the common behavior is.
Spirit of discovery. When you're sparring, you should keep experiencing, let the guy escape, or even put yourself in a triangle and see how would you escape. Or
so Hiron came here not the last time, maybe it's his first trip here.
The one where he put you on the spot with the
no, not that one. Not that one. It was one of his very first trips.
The biceps slicer you learned it from.
It was one of those
those mean techniques, huh?
That's a good story. We explained that on our funny stories.
Oh,
yes.
man.
That was great.
So he said, what if you had your life to spend doing jiu-jitsu? You didn't think of it as in terms of, months of journey or years of journey, but like a lifetime journey. Would it be bad to spend a year on bottom side control? Think of how good your bottom side control would be if you spent every roll started laying down and letting them just for a year.
After the year, you'll be much better at being on the bottom of the side.
And then maybe move on to another position. But he explained it much better than I just did. But it was that kind of concept of how good would you be with all your escapes, with submissions from bottom side, with everything from there if you just spent a year there. And I thought,
you did that?
And I think I spent 6 years on bottom side. So now I shake hands. I kind of lay down.
I'm in process. I'm in the process.
But that's how you learn. And now I feel when people get on my side, I'm not. It's not that I don't feel fear. There's still times when you think, well, man, I'm in a bad spot here. But I'm very comfortable there. I feel very comfortable. And the only way that you get there is by willing to put yourself there. But if I never allowed myself to go to that position because I was good enough to where I never had to go to the bottom side, my bottom side would be terrible.
I got it. Cool. Jason, how was you getting your kids involved in jiu-jitsu? Because you brought Randall when he was 5, and after all these years, he still come and train, and he helps teaching the classes now. And he's amazing teaching the kids.
I'm very proud. He's over there.
He's over there. You should bring him here.
So I said he started when he was about 5 years old.
Let him tell the story.
Do you remember your first jiu-jitsu?
This is Randall right here. Tell us, Randall.
Tell your first story about when you came to the school. Do you remember?
What do you remember?
I think it was when you were like that and you raised the arm.
Oh, the first technique.
Yeah.
So when we first got here, Randall was very, very young, and as a parent, you always want your kids, hopefully, to do things that you enjoy. If he wanted to do anything else in life, I would love him and I would support him. But the fact that he is doing jiu-jitsu, or I could at least point him towards jiu-jitsu, was a benefit to me as a parent. Because if I have to come and spend an hour watching my son do something, I want it to be something that I'm somewhat interested in.
You might as well be involved in that.
This will hurt your feelings, but I don't much care for soccer. If he wanted to play soccer, I would support him, and I would go to soccer and I would cheer, but I wouldn't enjoy it.
It's not like you're going to go and play with him.
I'm not going to be.
Or be the coach.
So bringing him here, at first, before I did any of the Gracie certification stuff for instructor, I was a typical parent doing things the wrong way.
What are the wrong way?
Trying to make him perfect the very first time, because everything that you were teaching, if he didn't get 100% of it, I was getting irritated, because I thought, this is my son, he should know this already. He's been doing this since he was a baby. When he was a baby, I would play around with him. I was constantly doing little jiu-jitsu things with him, and I thought, man, if he can't do it, this is bad. I want him to do it. So I made all the kind of common mistakes. And then after a while, I started to I backed off and I said, you know what, I'm going to work on the other kids in these classes and allow Marco and the other instructors to always help Randall. And I think most kids are probably the same way, that listening to another adult is much easier than listening to their parents. We've had this on circle time, right, where we say, guys, you should go home and eat salad. In fact, Randall did this. We used to say, Randall, you need to eat salad. And I don't want to eat salad. And then one day, Marco said, guys, we should go home and eat salad. And then we got home, and Randall looked at me and said, Dad, I'd like a salad. I was like, oh, all right. Let me.
Yes, parents sometimes come and request, can you tell the kids to like go to bed early? It's like, yeah, we can tell them. Because they listen to us.
Marco, like the principal? Like you're the principal?
So that's when I really started to see the change. And then what's crazy, as with most kids, you have to kind of make them do it at first. You always have to say, because they don't know that they want to do jiu-jitsu. You say, I'm going to take you to jiu-jitsu, and then you take them to jiu-jitsu, and then if they like it, if they never come back, they're probably not going to ask to come back. They're probably just, because they're going to go on about their lives. Then you take them back and they go, oh, that was fun. But there's a point where something happens when they get a little bit older, where they start to enjoy going. And then it becomes fun, because then you can almost say, well, if you don't clean your room, then we don't go to jiu-jitsu, and then it becomes a reward versus what most people say is, but most people with their kids, like, we got to go to jiu-jitsu, hurry up, let's go, get in the car, get your gi, where's everything at, let's go.
So this is a better way than that?
And absolutely.
What is that?
So once the kids enjoy coming, then it's, hey, if you're good, if you do your schoolwork, if you do your homework, then we can go to jiu-jitsu. I always say we get to go to jiu-jitsu, we can go to jiu-jitsu. It makes jiu-jitsu an opportunity versus when you say you have to do something, it's like you have to do your homework. Yeah. You have to make your bed. Like it's something, anytime you have to do something, it's not nearly as fun. If I say, Marco, you have to exercise, I don't want to exercise. But if I say, hey, Marco, we get to come to jiu-jitsu and exercise, you're like, oh, I get to. That's fun.
So
it's a different.
Make it look like it's a reward coming to.
It's a reward. It's a reward that they do it. But in a different mindset. And so once Randall started kind of enjoying coming, then it was easy. Then it was, hey, let's go. It's time
kind of on autopilot. Then
it's on autopilot, right? And
now you're helping too, Randall.
Yeah, a bit.
You help with calling. I saw you. How do you feel helping teaching the other kids with your dad when he's teaching too?
It's interesting.
Interesting? Yeah. You have to be very patient, right?
Which is kind of hard because I'm a very impatient person.
You're very patient.
Whenever I go to a restaurant, I'm always like, I want the food. Food.
Gotcha.
You've matured a lot since when I first got here. You've matured quite a bit from like the very first time. Of course,
I think was it one time? Was it Randall or Weston where he didn't want to partner with a girl?
Oh, that was that was very early on. It was, oh man, and I probably could have done a better job of handling that.
Really bad about that. Like a couple of days afterward.
Can I tell the story? Will it embarrass you?
No, I'm fine.
After Randall, we hadn't been here very long, maybe a couple classes, and before that, he had already partnered up with a few kids. I think it was like him and Roman and a few other people. So he had his kind of a few people that he liked to go with.
This is Little Champs class, right?
Little Champs. Yeah. And Marco said, okay, find a partner. And everybody else had found a partner, and it was Randall and a girl that were standing there. And Randall was kind of looking, and he's like, nuh-uh. And Marco's like, okay, you guys go together. And Randall said, no. He said, and he goes, he said, you guys would make good partners. You're the same height. And Randall said, no, she stinks. And he didn't want to go with a girl. And
no.
And then I said, okay, let's go. So we went back in the locker room and we had kind of a heart-to-heart conversation. And what was funny is we took a little time out. It took a little time. It's normal. Like 5-year-olds, they're not normal that they want to go with somebody that's, boys don't want to go with females. And girls don't want to go with boys necessarily. So we waited a couple times, and then I said, do you think you could train with a girl now? And it was like maybe a month later, we took kind of a whole month off. And he said, yeah, because he wanted to come back. And then he came back, and now no problem. But it was that one opportunity. And I think that happens sometimes. So even as instructors, we're kind of looking around, always making sure that we find good partnerships.
Yeah, it's very important for the kids. Cool,
especially the little ones, right? Especially the little ones. They want to be with their friends.
Oh yes, they always want to be with their friends.
Once you break, it's like you break up that
break
connection.
The trail, man. And it's like they're like, man, I can't train in these conditions. You know, I'm training with somebody else who's not my partner, and it's a girl too. I don't want to do this. Yes,
man. Randall, what's your favorite technique?
I like the armbar.
Armbar, front top or guard?
I can do the guard armbar.
Guard armbar. That's awesome. You start your Roman. Who's the kids who started with you that you remember? Romans from your.
I'm not sure who stayed from that time.
Roman definitely, right? Roman definitely.
I can picture a couple of kids, but they're all in like black belt now.
Are there black belt kids that we started with?
From a long time ago. I don't remember many faces.
But
I remember a few.
I think Edwin was one that was pretty early on.
Oh wow!
Yeah, but it was Randall and Roman. I think they were kind of right with each other for a long time. Some of the early videos that you have on YouTube, there's pictures of them, together training. So cool stuff.
Super cool. How long are you planning on training? Just for another year, or
as long as I can? I can come.
So it's like it's a thing now for you, huh? It's like a lifestyle now for you, not a hobby. It's a lifestyle.
Keep having fun.
Yeah, I have fun.
When it becomes a lifestyle, they just want to do it now. It doesn't even become.
Can you imagine 20 years from now?
Randall's gonna be slain.
Randall, take it easy. You have to take it easy.
And he said that today in the car.
Not teaching that much.
He'll probably get mad. I'll tell this story too. But he was saying in the car, he said, Dad, I like teaching the little champs a little better than the junior grapplers, because he said he feels like the junior grapplers are his same age, and so he feels more comfortable with the kid. I said, well, that's normal, even for me. The same way. I remember as a purple belt, we were here and I was doing master cycle, and we had a visiting student that came in with a brown belt.
Right, and you want to be like,
and then I thought,
why don't you teach, right?
Right. But what was crazy was at the end, he was extremely excited to have me teach that technique to him. Yeah. And I thought, man, okay, this is, just because you're wearing a brown belt or a black, you don't know everything. And there's always opportunity to learn. There was that interesting meme about the person like climbing towards the top of the mountain thinking, and then they get to the black belt and they realize that the mountain keeps going. It never stops.
Man.
Never stops.
So the trick, if there's any parents there, keep it fun, keep it positive. Don't try to like them. You need to learn. You need to be good. In 1 year, you need to be a champion.
And I think, and I'm sure Jay and anybody who's tried to coach their kids through this has probably made some mistakes. But one of the ones I've learned recently is to just kind of sit back and praise just them doing things, because it shouldn't be your appreciation shouldn't only be when they do something right. So saying something like with Randall, I'll try to say things like, maybe you should earmuff it. I don't know. Yeah. But I try to say things like, hey, it was great teaching with you today. It was great having you help me today. Instead of saying, hey, you did a great job teaching, or you did perfect with this. After a while, it starts to kind of fall on deaf ears, where those other kind of comments seem to resonate more sometimes.
Yeah,
like, I enjoyed having the opportunity to be.
Is this dad the teacher, or is this dad being genuine with me? You know what I mean?
Right.
Because he can probably see you doing that with his students too, correcting them in the same way. You're like, you did great right here. This looks good. But now is it more genuine when you specify, hey, thank you so much for teaching with me today? And
we as instructors now know that a kid that's doing something 60% right is still got a majority of that
that's
technique.
incredible.
That's
amazing.
incredible, right?
Little champ, 60%.
I don't care.
That's a lot.
or even if they're doing something 20% right, you don't ever concentrate on the 80% that they could do better. You concentrate on that 20% that they're doing right. Say, man, you did a great job of shaking hands before you're king of the mountain. You did it. You concentrate and you praise what they're doing correct and what doing good, and versus otherwise it becomes a negative thing all the time. If you say, you need to tighten up those legs on that arm bar, or you need to stay lower on the mount, or make sure you put your hooks in, all they're remembering is all those negative things, and they're not concentrating on the positive. And it's nobody wants to continue to do something that they're terrible at, or they think they're terrible at.
Exactly.
The only way you're going to continue to do something is if you feel like you're somewhat good at it. Except golf. I think golf, you can always be bad at golf and still want to play. But
man, it's amazing.
And I think
it's a good story.
And then kind of my last thing I think is important is when people spar with each other, I think we set unrealistic goals for ourselves. So going back to what we were saying earlier about, an idea of discovery and to keep it playful, is most people only view success when they make somebody tap. And early on, when you're just starting, you graduate combatives and you come into master cycle and you start doing more sparring. If the only time you feel like you're doing good is when you make somebody tap, you're going to leave here upset more times than not. So you have to concentrate on the things that you're doing well.
Right.
And what I always tell people is you can set your own finish line. You can set your own victory, right?
For example?
Well, if I was sparring with you and the only time I considered myself as doing good is when I made you tap, I would never be happy. I would always be like, man, I'm not. Never.
Maybe set small, realistic goals, achievable goals.
So now my thing is, well, I want to see if I can hold Marco for 30 seconds in side mount. And then if I hold Marco for 30 seconds and then he escapes, in my head, I still had a victory. And I go, hey, I'm good. Even if you pull guard and then you catch me in an arm bar or a triangle and I tap a second later, I still in my head won that 30-second battle that I set for myself.
So you gave me this example before with the trap and roll. Like if you're holding, no, what was it? Oh, even if you escape the trap, you escape the mount using a trap and roll, and then when you end up on top, they choke you out, and then you have to tap. You still trap and roll them.
I'm still ecstatic that I got the trap and roll.
Exactly.
And then
you got choked after.
And then my next finish line may be
next time if I can do the trap and roll and avoid the choke. Or, you know what I messed up is I did the trap and roll when he already had his hands inside my collar. So I've got to do my trap and roll faster. So you just change your own victories. Don't get hung up on all the things you're doing wrong. And, I got tapped 6 times tonight. If you do that, you're going to leave here mad. And nobody wants to leave here mad. You should always leave jiu-jitsu happy and glad that you came to jiu-jitsu. Do we have any questions?
No questions.
Guys, we're here talking with Jason about his journey. And maybe this is not jiu-jitsu related, but tell us about your... was it cowboy first or bull riding career?
So yeah, I had a bull riding career that lasted about 6 bulls, I think.
Really, man. Tell us about it.
So when I was in high school, I hung around a bunch of people that were all kind of cowboy people, and they opened up a place that offered bull riding, and you would have to pay money to go and ride this extremely dangerous animal. And if you've never done it, it's the most insane thing that I can think of, because the average bull weighs almost 2,000 pounds.
Oh,
and when you watch them on TV, there's no way to really understand the power that they have when they're actually kicking. But the story that I tell people is like the very first one that you go there and you say, I want to ride. They're like, hey, okay, this guy's very first bull, sign the waiver in case you die. Sign the waiver. And then they're like, bring out Patches. And Patches is like this old, like,
old bull.
Old bull, and it kind of comes out. I think it had like ice on its back. You know, it's like an old bull, like cane, and it comes out, and you know, you get on the bull, and you put your hand in the bull rope, and and you're in the pen, and you're just so scared to death because it's your very first time, and the idea is that you hold on, you nod your head, they open the gate, and the bull takes off. Well, I nod my head, they open the gate, and Patches kind of goes out at like a leisurely stroll and kind of walks a little bit and walks a little bit and walks a little bit. And then, I jumped off Patches, and I was so happy I landed on my feet. I didn't fall down. I was happy. I took my hat off, and I was so proud. And like nobody was cheering. I thought my first ride, I lasted, the full 8 seconds, and I'm not getting any.
But in my what you need to last
8 seconds, you're supposed to stay on top. And in my head, it was like a crazy run. But when I went back and watched the video, the bull just kind of walked. It was quite sad.
There's a video of this?
Yeah, there we had videos and pictures, I think. And then I think that was like my first bull, and then like bull number 6 was one that wasn't Patches, and I got on this bull, and what happens in bull riding is sometimes if you fall off on the wrong side of the bull, it's been a while since I've done it, but you'll get your hand, the way the rope goes through your hand is when you open your hand, the rope loosens and then your hand comes out, but your hand is inside like a suitcase handle, and then it's strapped down really, really tight. Well, if you fall the wrong way, your hand gets inverted and it gets stuck. So if anybody's ever watched,
even if you open your hand,
even if you can't open your hand because it's stuck on the back of the bull like this. And if you've ever watched a bull rider stuck on the bull with their hands in there, that's what happens. They went off on the wrong side of the bull, and their hand gets stuck, and then it takes the bullfighter to come in and pull the rope, which is enough to pop the clowns to actually pop your hand open. Well, so I went off on the wrong side, and I got hung up by the bull and got.
But it's not like you made that decision. It's like the bull.
It's just which way you fall. You just fall off. And so I was there for, again, it seems like an eternity. 8 seconds seems like an eternity, but I was probably there more than 8 seconds because my little bit of time that I was on top, and then the rest of the time hanging. And then when I fell off, the bull landed straight down on my leg, and my leg, it didn't break, but it swelled up. I mean, it was
your knee.
It was my calf, and it swelled up so big. And then the next morning, I couldn't walk, and this is my mom, when she took me to the hospital, was really worried because if she said if I told them that I was bull riding when I got hurt, that they would cancel the insurance. So she's like, don't tell them that it was like a bull. Tell them it was a horse or something that was acceptable.
Something that was acceptable. Some acceptable animal.
And then after that, I said, you know what? I'm planning a career in law enforcement. I don't want to get hurt and never be able to do it. So that was like bull number 6, and it was kind of, so I don't know, whatever 6 bulls is times a few seconds a piece. That was how long my bull riding career lasted. But I do.
That's amazing, man. That's an amazing experience. That's crazy. I would never do it though.
But somebody said one day, said, "Well, you have a good mount. It must be because of your time." I said, "If you were
horses too, right?"
I did horses. Yes, 6 years on horseback. Yep. For work, 6 years on horseback.
I think if you wear spats, then probably you'll do better.
I will not wear pantyhose.
He hasn't experienced pantyhose. You haven't experienced jiu-jitsu unless you come to pantyhose.
I always joke that when they wear their spats, that they're wearing their tights, and I started calling them pantyhose.
It protects my knee, I feel like.
But you wear them all the time under your gi too.
Yes.
Randall has spats. He likes spats.
You like your spats, Randall?
Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe if I start. I know the first time I put on a rash guard.
He's converting.
Little by little.
The first time I put on a rash guard, I thought it was like rolling, like I felt like I couldn't move the whole time, and then I was like hot and tight. I felt like I was more constricted. Maybe I had too small of a rash guard, but then I joke. I said, then I went back to the locker room to take it off, and that's when I injured myself trying to take the rash guard off. I rolled all night, no injuries, and then trying to get that rash guard off when you're hot and sweaty.
Break your shoulder.
I'm trying to take off my rash guard.
So how'd you injure yourself? Jiu-jitsu. What has the rash guard got me?
Man, how do you see speaking of injuries, Like, how's your body, your longevity? How long you see yourself doing this?
So, I started, like I said, 2003. A lot has changed in those years, and one of the things is just the way that I roll has definitely changed. I'm a lot slower. I'm a lot. I want to make sure that movements are the best movements I can make to avoid injury. A lot of times when you just start and you don't know, you're jumping into positions, and that's how you get hurt, because you don't really know when you're in a bad spot. And so now I've really kind of slowed things down, but I feel like as you get better, then there's not as much of a rush. Because if you can do something really, really slow, then you can speed it up if you ever needed to. So I've definitely slowed down, but I always try to stay active and keep moving. And injuries for the most part here at this school. I had my eye one time.
Yes.
Yeah. It's
armbar.
It was So this is the classic mistake that people make, right? It was me and Christian going together. We were both either blue belts or purple belts, new purple belt. I guess blue belts probably at the time. And my wife has a saying where she says, when I go out to jiu-jitsu, she says, no more, one more. Because anytime somebody says, okay, last roll, that's the one everybody wants to leave with a victory. Nobody wants to go the last roll with a loss on their record. So the last roll, it was Christian and I were going, and he had my arm, and it was pretty much a done deal. And had it been earlier, I probably would have just tapped, but it was the one more last roll. I didn't want to lose, and there was a few seconds left on the clock. So Christian's head was that way, his legs were that way, my arm was here, and I was fighting his top leg. And I was doing pretty good until he changed kind of the angle that he brought his leg in, and he brought his heel, and it hit me right in the eye. I think I was probably trying to do like the hitchhiker escape a little bit, where I had turned this way, and his heel came down to grab the armbar, unintentional, and he hit me right in the eye. And immediately, like, I knew it wasn't good. I opened my eye and everything, double vision and everything. And John O'Sullivan was here, and he comes over and he's like, dude, you fractured your orbit. Whatever you do, don't sneeze.
Blow your nose.
Don't blow your nose, man. I said, no, I don't think it's that. He goes, do you have double vision? I said, yes. He goes, it's happened to me, bro. It's happened to me. Don't blow your nose. And so that night, I went home and I said, I don't think I did a fracture of my orbit. I didn't even know what an orbit fracture meant. I just knew that my eye was messed up. And so I got a tissue, and my nose had been bleeding too. So I got a tissue to try to blow just a little bit, like just that much pressure. And I felt my eye like starting to go, and I was like, oh. So then imagine trying not to sneeze, telling yourself you can't sneeze, or if you have to sneeze, like it has to go out of your mouth. And it was the craziest time, because then I ended up having to go, I think it was almost like 2 weeks before I went to the doctor and actually did the surgery to get my floor and my eye built. And then even after that, the doctor said, like, for 3 months, don't sneeze, because everything is still kind of in there. So try to imagine never having to sneeze for 3 months. I took allergy pills like nobody's business, man. I was popping them like Pez so that I wouldn't sneeze. And then I remember, I think it was probably the 3 months had gone by, and the very first actual sneeze that I let go, and nothing happened. I was like, oh, I'm good. But that was pretty much the most significant injury that I've had, other than just little tweaks and like feeling sore. But a lot of it's because the environment that we have here at the Basix is one of cooperation, and everybody has jobs. Everybody wants to help each other. Nobody really goes 100%, and that's why I haven't changed. I haven't gone anywhere. Not only because of I like the school and it's close, but because of the environment that you've built here, and it's rare. It really is rare. I travel a lot for work, and I pop in to do jiu-jitsu schools, and I'll tell you that almost every jiu-jitsu school I've ever gone to, they've been extremely friendly. Everybody's very nice, but the environment that we have here is very unique to very unique in the jiu-jitsu world of this cooperativeness. Nobody wants to get hurt.
It's all of us, you know. I feel like you've been helping a lot to build that, Jay and Randall and everybody.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you for
That's
that.
the journey.
Cool. You guys, how long we been talking? An hour already?
Time flies by. Christian
Anybody watching?
Christian just said, "Sorry, bro." And that was the beginning for all my safety tips. Sorry, Jason.
Yeah, so yeah, he does. In fact, on his armbar, anytime he teaches the armbar, he says, "Make sure you cover the eye."
Christian.
Oh man, you guys.
Good story, man. That's amazing.
We're doing this live Facebook just to stay in touch, get to know each other more, and just stay connected with you guys. Any final words, Randall?
I have nothing to say.
What would you say if a kid is watching and he doesn't want to train jiu-jitsu?
Kid that doesn't want to train, what would you say to him?
What would you say to him?
You'll get used to it. Keep going.
Come and you'll get used to it. Just come and keep going.
But that's I don't want to go off on a tangent, but what happens if the kid says, I don't want to go? Do you force them
As a
to
parent?
go as a parent? What do you
Look, I'm not.
I think
I'm
at
not
some
a parent.
point, but you're always trying to reintroduce it. So even
You
in
have
that
to be more
month that Randall
subtle,
was
more subtle.
off, we continued to play at home jiu-jitsu all the time. We've always played jiu-jitsu at home.
And the kids love playing.
Any opportunity to wrestle with somebody, most kids love it. And then after a while, they're going to ask to come back. They're going to want to come back. So even if they don't, you say, you know what, I'm not going to force them. It's too much work to force my kid to go. Keep playing, keep encouraging
Let
them.
it go for now, and then. After
And
a while,
if you're training, that's the best thing. Be the example. Keep coming, and you can bring them to watch. That's another thing, that they can come and just watch a class. Say, well, you don't have to do it. Just watch the class. That's okay. And then after a while, they see the kids running around doing dodgeball. They're going to want to come back out. So awesome.
Nice. Thank you guys for watching, and hopefully, anything else, Jay?
No questions, no comments. Few people that I haven't seen in a while are watching.
What are they?
So
Let's
start
shout
from the top.
out.
So hello, Paulo, Kim, Sergio,
Paulo,
Heather, Jason Bjornson, Sebastian Cordova,
Sebastian,
Matt
how's it
Zhao.
going?
Matt Zhao, remember Matt?
Matt?
Matt Zhao?
Oh yes,
Yeah,
Matt. How's it going?
Yeah, so it's just a few faces, few people we haven't seen. What's up, Chris? What's going on? Genesis, Mariella.
There's students who you took under your wing too. I feel like Thomas, and now he mentioned Jason. It's almost like they are more your students than,
Oh, I think, yeah, for sure. Once you start working with somebody and you click, they start kind of understanding what I think that definitely
happens, right?
Yeah, man.
That's
What happens is they go to their friends and they say, man, you guys got to come train at this school. The instructors, nobody's getting hurt. Nobody's walking out of there in splints. It is next to a physical therapy place. But man,
Our school is next to. Oh, they know.
they know this, right?
They know.
Cool.
All right, guys. Thank you very much. Stay safe. Stay healthy. And hopefully stay patient. You'll be back soon here, and then we'll all be here talking and doing what we love. Take care, and we'll be in touch.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.
Cut. I'll be in my trailer for the next. Oh, we're not.
Finish.
I'll be in my trailer
Why?
for the next movie.
Good job, Mom.